Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hopefully, it's sunny in your area, just like in mine. My name is Igor Chigrin, owner of Fair Grant Writing Limited, and thank you for joining the webinar today. We will not be talking about any grants, any government loans, or tax credits, because usually that's what we do on our webinars. But sometimes we have great guest speakers to cover those subject areas that we don't cover, and those subject areas that our clients care about. And one of such areas is debt. So of course, everybody has a debt on personal level, but on a corporate level, most likely as well. And sometimes you may be in a situation when it's just way too much and there's not enough support. I can tell you our experience when the COVID started. What is it, a year and a half ago? The initial stimulus package, initial wage subsidies and other subsidies package was pretty generous. It was much easier to qualify. What happened in the recent 3 to 4 months, those programs got really, really complicated in terms of qualification, first of all. Not everybody is eligible anymore. There are even complications in calculations of those subsidies. So the support is basically fading. However, the pandemic is not going anywhere. We're in the middle of yet another wave, and only God knows how many waves are ahead. So that's why we decided to invite Debbie Dokas, who is an associate partner with Sarnowski Debt Law, which is a law firm that specializes in helping clients to eliminate or reduce the debt from the legal perspective. And of course, Debbie will explain you much better how it works and what sort of advantages of going through the law firm versus the bankruptcy trustee. But just what triggered our invitation is yet another bankruptcy. Like, unfortunately, one of our clients went bankrupt recently, and I feel very bad every time it happens. Not because we've written a lot of grants for them, and as you can see, even grants don't really help if the amount of debt is too high. What I feel bad about is those people that work for the company, because they will have to start looking for another job in the pandemic situation. It's not easy. It's not easy even without the pandemic. But anyway, my point is that I feel every business owner and individual alike should know their options and rights when it comes to that. And this is what Debbie will be covering here today. So I'm just going to change a host and make sure that Debbie is on the top screen, and then I'll go on mute and Debbie will carry on.
Thank you, Igor. Thank you very much. Thank you all. I can't see any of the other participants, so maybe that's actually a good thing. I can pretend I'm talking to myself. Thanks for taking time out of your valuable day today to join us. I hope to add some more value to that day. A couple of things that Igor has referenced in regards to what he specializes in is helping these businesses to get more grants and more support from the government. And unfortunately, the sad reality is those options are drying up as we speak, right, Igor? Which is not helping matters, particularly if individuals or businesses are already carrying some level of debt. So why I am here today is it's part of my awareness campaign. So I am managing partner of Sarnowski Debt Law, and we do indeed deal with individuals and companies that are suffering from debt loads, whether those debt loads are so severe that they are looking at potential bankruptcies and talking to trustees to eliminate that debt, or simply they're just carrying unnecessary debt loads that will get them to that point eventually, especially when these grants and other subsidized programs start to dry up. I'm here to let you know, as an individual, as a business owner, and whether that's a large corporation, a manufacturing business, or just simply a mom and pop shop, it doesn't matter. The legislation stays the same, that the Canadian federal government has indeed developed legislation, it's been in existence for a long time, that will eliminate unnecessary unsecured debt for you. They have developed economic stimulus programs in order to do this. And of course, their goal is, and I'm glad you touched on this as well, Igor, their goal is to stop individuals from going bankrupt and stop businesses from shutting their doors. So when an individual goes bankrupt, we already know the side effects and the repercussions of that: the divorce, suicide, substance abuse, heart attacks, strokes, mental health issues, you name it. And that's just the one individual. When a business goes under and 50 employees are left unemployed, especially in COVID times, you can imagine the fallout from that, the exponential side effects from that. The government doesn't want it. They are happy to forgive this debt. The issue, and I'm assuming that's why we are all here today, the issue is that most Canadians, coast to coast, don't understand that when they have these debt problems, their problems are legal problems. Okay, there are strategic legal options you can do to implement these government programs, use the federal legislation to eliminate your debt while preserving your assets. So part of what I'm about to explain, I was thinking about how the best way to relay this information to you. And I was thinking about doing a question answer, but that tends to be a little bit scattered. We will have a Q&A at the end. So what I'm going to do up front is I'm going to address the most frequently asked questions that I get and sort of answer those questions ahead of time. If at the end there are still some lingering questions, of course, I'll welcome that. But let me also qualify that with today's meeting is intended to be informational for you so that you are aware of these options. If your questions are specific in nature as to, I know this one company, or what happens when suppliers do this with this particular company, those are more specific technical questions. I don't want to bog down the room. I'm more than happy to speak with you after the meet, where you reach out to me, email me or call me, and we can have a private conversation and I can answer more of those questions then. But for now, let's address the room. So one of the first things that pops into people's minds when I explain to them that we use these federal government programs to eliminate debt while preserving their assets, one of the very first go-tos is, well, isn't that what bankruptcy trustees do? They are now officially called licensed insolvency trustees. They changed their name from bankruptcy trustees. And my answer to that is absolutely not, because there are certain things, yes, they are correct in one aspect. Insolvency trustees, bankruptcy trustees can eliminate your debt. Here's the difference. You have a legal problem. You are entitled, if you are suffering from debt, whether it's on the verge of bankruptcy because the debt load is so heavy, or just unnecessary debt that's bogging down your business, you have legal options to maneuver and use the legislation to avoid from going bankrupt, to preserve those assets, and the government will gladly eliminate that debt. When a trustee in bankruptcy eliminates your debt, here's what you are not told, and most Canadians are unaware of. By law, insolvency trustees, bankruptcy trustees are mandated to represent the creditors. So this legal strategizing that I'm talking about, that is your God-given right in this country, bankruptcy trustees are not allowed to strategize with you. They are mandated by law to represent the creditors. So when they use legislation to eliminate the debt, whether you're going bankrupt or the latest and greatest thing, and I'm being very sarcastic when I say the greatest thing, are consumer proposals, because quite often, if you settle for a proposal to avoid that big B bad word of bankruptcy, you're paying 10 times more than you would have just going bankrupt. Regardless, when they present you with those two options, they are mandated by law to represent the creditors, which means once you reveal all of your assets, whatever they are, RSPs are ESPs if the kids are under 18, so on, bank accounts, investments. They are mandated by law to drain you, to collect those assets, to pay off as much debt as you possibly can to those creditors, leaving you nothing. On top of that, they are paid a government tariff percentage up to set maximum 7.5% of what they collect. I don't have to spell that out for you. The more they take, the more they make. So we are not insolvency trustees. Let me give you another example as to sort of the ridiculousness of being in overwhelming amounts of debt and going to a trustee for help. It is similar to, well, let's take a look at the at criminal law, for example. If you commit a crime and you are charged by the police, not only do you go and find yourself a criminal lawyer, you are told by the police you need to have a criminal lawyer to represent you, right? If you have been personally injured in an accident and it's severe, most people in this country will not go after the insurance companies to get what they're paid, what they're due to be paid, because they don't know how to represent themselves. So they go to a lawyer for help. Yet here are these 150,000 plus Canadians, these are old statistics based on 2019, that declared bankruptcy in 2019, that didn't know that when they went to the trustee, they were actually going to the prosecutor for help. They needed a defense lawyer to defend them and give them legal options to protect their assets. Instead, they went to the prosecutor. They showed the prosecutor all of their evidence. Here's all of my money, everything worth any value, because they believe that the bankruptcy trustee works for them. So that is one of the greatest myths I need to dispel here today. Before you ever speak to a trustee, you need legal advice. You have a legal problem. Here's another sort of metaphor I heard the other day that's perfect. Imagine that there was no such thing as criminal lawyers. Everybody would be in jail. Imagine there was no such thing as private injury lawyers protecting people when they were in accidents. All of those people would be getting Tim Hortons gift cards from the insurance companies. And imagine if there are no lawyers out there representing people in debt, they all go bankrupt. And that's essentially what's happening. So this is the awareness that I have for you today. Just protect yourself, know your rights. And one of the other, the last question I'll address that's most frequently asked is, let me backtrack to the comparison with the trustees. The other thing that you will be provided when you get legal help for your debt issues is privacy and lawyer-client confidentiality. You won't find your company splashed on the pages of the Globe and Mail. You can continue your business without anybody ever knowing. I'll give you, I understand that there's a few manufacturers in the crowd today. I'll give you a very quick example of something we did in the past year with a small manufacturer in KW area, 50 employees, easily got themselves into $3 million debt with CRA. So when I say we eliminate debt, it's unsecured debt, CRA is included in that. Business owners will know how easily that is done. Some people are shocked by that number. We are not. Many business owners are not, because all you have to do when you start hurting financially, particularly during COVID times and shutdowns, is you stop with your source deductions, you stop with your HST, GST payments, and so on. And very quickly, that can add up to 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. This company was short by probably about 2 weeks from being shut down. We moved in. Not only were we able to eliminate their debt to CRA quite often says to us, what took you so long? But the doors didn't close for a single day. The sign stayed up. The 50 employees had no idea that they were about to lose their jobs, none whatsoever. It wasn't splashed into the pages of the Globe and Mail, and the business continued as normal. And the only ones who knew about it were the business owner, us, and CRA. So that's a typical example of what can happen. And in saying that, in that particular case, it was urgent. When that company was 2 weeks from being shut down, We needed to move quickly. And here's the other myth I wanted to dispel. When people find out that it's federal government programs that we use to do it, government is generally associated with this slow moving bureaucratic slug that takes forever to get results. If the issue is pressing, we are in the emergency industry. We can move very quickly. And sometimes within 24 hours, we can file a client's claim and have them up and running. So just to dispel that little bit of myth. But I think that's all I have to say for my general explanation of things and what it is that we do. I'm willing to take some more general questions if you have them. Like I said, if they're specific or specific to your business, and particularly if they're private, feel free to reach out to me and I can have a conversation with you outside of this call. Okay. So that's it. Any questions?
Right, amazing, David. Thank you very much for very to the point introduction. I hope it was very clear for whoever attends the webinar and whoever will watch it later. What is it that they what kind of rights they have and when it comes to that situation. Now we do have time, so by all means, if anybody has any questions, what you can do, two things: either type it into the chat, or oh yeah, so thanks, Sean. Or you can raise your hand and we'll unmute you, and you can ask your question live.
Ultimately, my concern, Igor, here today is promoting awareness, because you mentioned how guilty you felt when you have a client that ends up going bankrupt. Imagine how badly we feel when we find people that have gone bankrupt when they didn't have to, when they simply didn't have to. They've lost everything and they didn't have to. So that's my passion, is promoting this awareness, and avoiding losing your hard-earned money, losing that business that you've worked so hard for, or your assets, whether they're corporate or personal. The legislation is the same.
Yeah.
For private consumers and corporations as well. Yeah.
Okay, now we have a question from Judy. Content was addressed, however, does Sarnowski debt law have any programs that help eliminate reducing bank debt to the focus?
Sure. So Judy,
okay.
I should have been more clear with that, I think. So when I say reduce, I use CRA as the example. When I say reducing debt, it's all unsecured debt. So that's not just CRA, it is all credit cards, lines of credit with the banks, absolutely. It does not include secured debt, so not mortgages and leases, however. So when we work, do we work with banks? Mostly, I would say. Most debt would be in the form of bank debt. It depends, usually a combination. Depends on how long the business has been struggling or the people have been struggling. Yeah, it's not just government debt, it's all unsecured debt. Yeah. So I hope that answers that question, Judy. You're welcome. I must be very clear, Igor. There are no questions. Maybe so.
Well, we'll give it about 5 minutes, maybe, in case by the way, you don't necessarily have to share your question with everyone. When you type in your questions in the chat, there's a little drop down that currently says everyone, but you can change it and you can ask that question to David directly. This way, only she'll see that, and then nobody else will see that.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, if I mean, you have to digest this at some point as well. And if later, after this call, today, tomorrow, other questions pop into your mind, I would assume people have my contact.
Sure, yeah, and I got one question. Can you comment on CRA, that on the debt to CRA? Why is it serious, and what are the potential maybe consequences of such a debt?
When you're in debt to CRA,
Yes,
you mean?
yeah,
Well,
exactly. 'Cause
well,
it's a
so
government, right? Why would the government kind of shoot the foot?
well,
What's the
because
problem
when
with
you're
CRA?
because when you're owing $3 million and you're not paying them, you leave them no choice but to collect. And this applies to like CRA will start gently quite often with garnishing wages, for example. It's in extreme situations. Then they really don't want to do this, especially during COVID time, but they will shut down the business because they cannot continue. It's fraud. It becomes criminal at some point to not contribute your source deductions and HST, GST, right?
Right, right,
It's
because
law.
it's not yours, right?
It's not yours. It's not
Tax.
yours. And if you're
Mhm.
using that money, if you start using that money to pay off other creditors to keep them at bay, to start paying off suppliers selectively, that's called selective payment of creditors. And that is
Mhm.
also criminal.
I see, I see.
And you don't want to get into that situation. So the trajectory is clear when the debt begins. Anybody who's in that much debt to CRA, you know that the debts are elsewhere as well. You need to be very careful that you're not continuing to just minimally pay off these suppliers to keep afloat while constantly keeping those source deductions to use to pay them off. That is indeed criminal. So we've got another question here.
Yeah, the question is, does this program mean that debt is forgiven or just reduced in some way? Does it impact the business credit rating in the
Right.
future?
So you've asked a couple of questions there, Garth. So when I say the debt is forgiven, yes, it is reduced. Depending on the situation, it can be reduced to zero. Most often it is reduced. It's all based on algorithms. So you can't say on average it's reduced on this percentage because there are so many factors involved with how much money is the business bringing in, what assets do they have, and so on. So yes, it is eliminated or forgiven. The meaning is the same. You are not paying it back. However much of that unmanageable debt is forgiven will be determined by these algorithms. And when it's forgiven or eliminated, it means the same thing. The next part of your question, Garth, I want to address, and this is a huge one that I always get, particularly from private individuals, consumers. What about my credit rating? So they will come to us drowning in debt. The collectors have been calling, sending letters, and stressing them out. They're not sleeping anymore. And their greatest concern the biggest question to me ends up being, what about my credit rating? And I say, what credit rating? Well, my credit rating right now. And there's a couple of ways I deal with this. I'll say, well, what do you need your credit rating for? Well, in case I need to borrow money. Okay. Will anybody loan you money right now? When I say, how is their credit rating? They say, I'm not sure. Are they loaning you money right now? Oh God, no, the bank shut me down. The credit cards cut me off. Nobody's touching me. They won't loan me any money. Okay. Well, I can't ruin a bad credit rating already. So some people just don't see the writing on the wall. First of all, the credit rating, you only ever need that credit rating to borrow more money, which is what got you here in the first place. And if no one is lending you money anyway, you don't have a credit rating to ruin. It's already ruined. What I can tell you is by going through the process of eliminating the debt, rather than struggling and spending the next however many years trying to make minimum payments and barely staying afloat, the quickest way to improve that credit rating is to eliminate that debt, get on top of those payments, and start rebuilding. That will be the quickest way to rebuild your credit rating. So I hope, Garth, does that answer your question? I'm just looking at the chat here.
And I have another question as well. Can these programs clear debt only in Ontario or across Canada?
It's federal legislation, people, coast to coast. We are dealing with clients in Alberta right now. So Alberta's going to take, Alberta already is suffering the heavy hits, just like the rest of Canada. So no, because it's federal legislation, this can be implemented anywhere, anyone in Canada, any province, any territory. Okay.
And we have also two questions.
You're welcome, Brady.
One is, does the government debt has any priority over other debts? I assume that means that, let's say if I owe to CRA, but I also owe to, I don't know, a couple of companies, other businesses, is there any priority with CRA or not?
No, that would also be illegal as well. CRA is treated equally to banks and to creditors, whether it's banks, whether it's payday loan companies. These guys are all included in unsecured debts as well. Equal creditors based on their amounts owing.
Because as a consumer, I can share my apparently wrong view. As a consumer, I thought that like the government has some sort of priority, and all the government debts should be paid first. And then,
thank you for saying that. People are terrified of CRA. First of all, they think it's like the IRS in the United States. We've watched too many Hollywood movies, and they're scared that they're going to come in with the hats on and take everything you've got. We slay CRA. We slay them. It's federal legislation. We're using their own legislation to eliminate it. And like I said, half the time they just look at us and say, what took you so long? They don't want people going bankrupt. They don't want businesses closing their doors. They are not the big bad wolf that you think they are, unless you deliberately wrong them, like we were talking about earlier. Unless you are deliberately keeping back those source deductions to go buy another car or pay out selective creditors, that will be criminal, and that will, at some point, they will catch on to that, and you could be in serious trouble. So yes, in that respect, but that's pretty extreme. As far as a creditor goes, they carry no more weight. And especially when it comes to eliminating the debt, the banks will fight us harder than CRA does.
Okay,
right?
okay.
So
I have another question. Oh,
yeah.
sorry. You had another question in the chat. If a company successfully reduces or eliminates a line of credit with a bank, but they also have a secured debt with the same bank, how does this generally affect the company's relationship with the bank? Meaning, will the bank attempt to collect the secured debt because the company has applied to reduce the line of credit?
Well, it doesn't, the secured debt, they can't act outside the original agreement with the secured debt just because they're the same bank that sees that you've just eliminated what you should have paid them in the unsecured line of credit. Would I continue to bank with that bank? No. I would say start opening accounts somewhere else because they don't like you very much, but they can't go outside of their legal scope and start punishing you from one thing to another. They're unrelated.
Yeah, so Debbie, I think the example that we could deal with this question is, let's say I have a line of credit with a bank, business line of credit with a bank, and they also finance my machine, right? My piece of equipment. Can they forcibly sell my piece of equipment in order to pay off the debt on the line of credit? That's the question, and I believe that's not the case, right?
No, as a matter of fact, we do, and this is, wow, you've tapped into something else I didn't think we'd talk about today. So for example, when we work with leasing companies to eliminate the debt of their lessees. And what you have tapped into is what happens, see, leasing companies, that is secured debt, right? And that should be number one priority for any lessee owning a business. If they are renting a large piece of equipment from Komatsu or Hitachi, they can't operate without that equipment. So if they can't make their lease payments and they lose the equipment, the company's kaput, right? But when they start struggling, they're unable to pay their suppliers and so on. They start with the source deductions and not contributing, and they get behind with CRA. This is how we link together with leasing companies and allowing this lessee who is drowning in debt to then super prioritize payments back to the leasing company. Because when we go to the lessee and eliminate all the unsecured debt, right? Suppliers, CRA, banks, lines of credit, even payday loans, even company owners will go to payday companies out of desperation. When that is gone and they are functioning, the leasing company now becomes super prioritized. It's instant cash flow and repossession is avoided. Non-performing accounts are brought back to life. Losses are reduced. The shareholders love the company for having found this third option that other leasing companies don't know about. Because generally speaking, a leasing company has two options. You beg and plead and take them out for lunch and forgive a couple of payments and hope that they keep maintaining their payments when they've missed some. And eventually when they can't, then you repo the equipment for 10 cents on the dollar. Well, when it's a $5 million machine for a diamond mining piece of equipment in Sudbury, who else wants that machine? It's worthless. And they get 10 cents on the dollar. So we reduce these losses. So you've sort of tapped into that. And we do the same with landlords and super prioritizing payments from their tenants. If their tenants are drowning in debt and we go in and reduce their debt or eliminate their debt, we put them in a position to start paying their rent again.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, this could be very useful for example, if you are a real estate investor and you own rental properties.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we work with landlords as well, especially commercial landlords right now, where so many businesses can't make their rent payment. Look at shopping malls, even, like, it's horrific, right?
Well, I like this discussion today because you and I know each other, but there's so many new information for me as well. So I'm very glad that you made a decision to do this.
And I'm hoping with
webinar.
Judy that this has answered. That was Judy's question, right?
Yep.
Have we answered? Have we helped you out there, Judy, with that?
While Judy's typing her answer, I got one more. What if I lost to court and have a judgment or garnishee? Is it too late to help?
Very good question. That is more complicated. Okay, great, Judy. You're welcome. It is more complicated, but it's doable. Depending on the circumstances, we can actually reverse civil. You're talking civil suit. Is that, I'm not sure who asked that question.
Probably civil, yeah.
Civil suit where you have been sued or you are about to be sued. Even better to get at it. This is why awareness is important and engaging early. The earlier, the better. If you are being served with papers and being taken to court, within 24 hours, we have a court-appointed trustee that works with us with parliamentary powers that could initiate a letter that would stop the civil suit dead in its tracks. It is possible in some cases to actually undo the suit. And when I say civil suit, there are certain things we can't touch. We can't touch criminal, and which is not civil anyway, but we can't touch anything to do with family law. Okay, that's untouchable. So if you're being taken to court because you've missed your payments for child support and things like that, we don't eliminate. That's not what we do. But that would be a conversation. If you're in the situation where you have been sued or you're about to be sued, I suggest you contact us right away and see what your options are. Of course, anytime you do reach out to us, there's never an obligation to speak with us. What we do is we offer to stress test your case, whether it's private or corporate, analyze it for you and tell you where you sit and help you to determine whether or not you apply or you qualify for those programs. If you do, we move forward from there. But up till that point, it's just a conversation. You need to know your rights before moving forward. And please do not go to a trustee before speaking to a lawyer. Please, ever. I can't make that any clearer.
Good. Speaking of the contacting you, by the way, Debbie, can you let everybody know how to contact Sarnowski Debt Law? What's the best way? Or
sure.
Maybe personal?
Yes. So they can well, depending on how they like to do things, they can phone us at 647-500-DEBT. A lot of people like to email as opposed to that. I would start with finding more information on our website. Our website, debt, which is 3328. The numbers work out to 3328. Next would be our website at sarnowskidebtlaw.ca, or you can access the website at saynototrustees.ca. Again, I can't be clearer in helping you to protect yourself and letting you know that you need to say no to trustees. So we have a saynototrustees.ca. And if they want to email me directly, it's simply Debbie@sarnowskidebtlaw.ca. So
hope I figured it out right.
Whichever. So, and here's the thing. Let me address one thing with debt as well.
Please.
It's the greatest shame of our times right now. Do not make light of it. What has changed dramatically in this society in the last 20 to 30 years? It used to be the certain great Canadian shames were things like being unemployed. Even if you lost your job legitimately because there was a layoff or a downsizing, it didn't matter. If you were unemployed, you were a loser. To collect unemployment insurance, which is now called employment insurance, or welfare, even worse, was horrific. You would be completely embarrassed. Sexual orientation, LGBTQ members, you would have to hide that. That was the greatest shame. We have, thank goodness, we have come a long way since then. Those things are no longer mental health issues, incredibly shameful. People thought you were cuckoo if you needed to talk to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. We are far more forgiving, far more open, thank goodness. However, this one thing that remains right now, this great shame, is not looking pretty and not having nice things. People will take debt to their grave. They do not want people knowing that they are broke or can't keep up with the Joneses or don't have the money to pay for certain things. They're seduced by the banks and credit card companies, because if they offered to loan me that line of credit, if they offered this credit card with a $5,000 limit, well, they must think I can pay it back. So that means I've got good credit and I can pay it back. I'll take it and upgrade that house and do things that you simply cannot afford. It's the only country in the world where you can be $200,000 drowning in debt and the only car you can afford to buy is a brand new one. Because somehow you still have a good credit rating and you can lease a Lexus if you want.
Yeah, and it's secured by the loan is secured by the car. Yeah.
So, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm saying this because I know that people are often reluctant, and you're so bombarded these days. We all are, with so many debt counseling services and debt consolidation services and all other programs offered by the government. People don't know where to turn, and they just think, well, this is just another one of those things. Take a deep breath. Find out your rights. Know that when you speak to a lawyer and you go to a law firm, that it's confidential, it's private. Because what I was getting to is that it is that big shame that people are afraid to reach out for help, because it's also then admitting it to themselves as well. Know that this is all a facade now, and yeah, things are going to come crashing down. And all I can tell you for sure is hoping and praying and keeping your fingers crossed that they won't eventually come and collect never works. Right. So be proactive and get in front of it. That's my greatest advice. Yeah.
Good. So, yeah, Debbie, this is actually a great point to conclude this session today.
Thank you.
We'll give a couple of more minutes in case there are any other questions. But I think it was great, it was insightful, and even though,
thanks for organizing it.
I learned some new stuff for me. So yeah, it's great. And yeah, hopefully none of us would be in the situation where we would require something like that. But the life is unpredictable. The economy is unpredictable. The stock market is going down this week, so who knows? Who knows what's gonna come? And yeah, the last piece that I want to tell everyone is, yes, definitely know your rights. And if you have that problem, then you have a legal problem, not financial problem as well, but first of all, you have a legal problem. So yeah, speak to a law firm for sure.
That's right. Thank you, Teresa. Thanks for the compliment. Thank you all for coming out. Oops, call coming into my computer there.
We'll cut it from the recording. Don't worry. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, Igor. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.